Hello and welcome to the Help Us Here podcast, brought to you by the Beyond Compulsion Academy. Today we are doing the first episode in the podcast studio with Mary Paulus as well, and we're going to be analysing this book here, which is a load of quotes by Marcus Aurelius. It's called Meditations. So this book isn't about addiction recovery in particular, but there's some principles and concepts within it which I think really align with our method, and I want to hear your take on it. So, Mary, you're quite new, I suppose, to this book. I've not planned you or prepped you at all on what we're going to talk about today. I've just kind of said, okay, I've got some quotes that I like in this book.
Yeah,
Do you want to talk about it?
yeah.
But yeah, welcome on the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, it's a beautiful day here in Portland, Oregon, for sure. Yeah, I'm
Nice.
doing good today. Yeah, good to
Awesome.
see you, as
Yeah.
always.
Good to see you too, as always, for sure. It's weird seeing you on a screen as well, like on a big TV screen, because we're in the podcast studio. I'm so used to seeing you on a
Yeah,
laptop, so it's a bit different.
yeah. I mean, it
Um,
looks the same to me, but I guess once I see it, it'll be different, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
I think so.
Bringing me
Oh
on the
yeah,
screen. Yeah,
we
cool.
also have two dogs in the studio. So
Oh, nice.
Emma, one of the dogs, is barking right now. So I don't know if that came into the audio or not, but if we
I
see a dog, yeah,
and I
if we
have two cats here, and hopefully none of them will be vomiting today.
Oh my God. Yeah, for
Yeah,
the podcast listeners, we had
yeah,
because podcast listeners won't know about the vomiting, but we had
yeah.
a group coaching call that we record inside of our Beyond Compulsion Academy. And at the end of the group coaching call, we were talking about Gabba Mate, and then one of Mary's cats was just vomiting in the background on the camera. Like, we've got the live recorded video. If anyone really wants to see that video, please get in touch. It is absolutely hilarious. I shared it with like all my family. It was so funny. Oh God. Anyway, let's get into some quotes then. So I've got about 13 quotes. I know that's an unlucky number, but I think there are around 13 quotes in this book which I highlighted. I just thought, yeah, they align with.
An Aurelius quote here that could be number 14 if we want to make it a a lucky number.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, we'll try throw that one in then, because it'd be good to
Sure.
have 14 instead of 13.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get going then. The first one then. And I just kind of cherry picked these. There's loads in this book which I loved. There was so much I could have chosen. I tried to go for the ones which I felt were the most clear, and some of the more concise ones, which just very clearly aligned with some of the things we say. But you may have some other perspectives on it, and these quotes obviously aren't perfectly true and completely in alignment with what we teach. But I think some of them could be very, very useful to people who want to overcome an addiction, right? So the first one: if you set yourself to your present task along the path of true reason, with all determination, vigour, and goodwill, if you admit no distraction, but keep your own divinity pure and standing strong, as if you had to surrender it right now, if you grapple this to you, expecting nothing, shirking nothing, but self-content with each present action taken in accordance with nature, and a heroic truthfulness in all that you say and mean, then you will lead a good life, and nobody is able to stop you.
That's a lot of words in one sentence. That's all one sentence. Yeah.
Is it all one sentence? You know what it actually is, yeah. We've
Yeah.
got the good old semicolon
Yeah.
in there and a normal
Yeah.
colon as well. But yeah.
I mean, I can relate to the present moment, reason, staying in a rational headspace in the present moment. And can you give me a little bit more of the middle of that?
Yeah, it says, expecting nothing, shirking nothing, but self-content with each present action taken in accordance with nature, and a heroic truthfulness in
Hmm.
all that you say and mean.
Yeah, that's very broad. I mean, as far as like applying it to addiction, yeah, it's I'm not sure how we would do that, but other than present moment and being rational in that present moment. But then can I get the end one more time?
Yeah, it says, then you will lead a good life and nobody is able to stop you.
No, that's true, right? Because we talk so much about the tidal wave of bad information and promoting and normalizing addiction and compulsion, right? You can make choices for yourself in the present moment. We've talked about this with the guys a lot, in group, because there's so much trying to influence them in another direction, and it's like nobody will be able to stop you once you have made these changes in your neural pathways based on what you want in the long term, right? It's like it doesn't matter what is in your face on social media or out there in the world, you're still going to be clear and know what you want. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like once you know the truth and you've defined that, then literally nothing can get in your way,
That's right. Once you
which,
know,
yeah,
you know.
is great. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Cool. All right, let's go for another one then.
Yeah.
Reflect often on the speed with which all things in being or coming into being are carried past and swept away. Existence is like a river in ceaseless flow. Its actions a constant succession of change. Its causes innumerable in their variety. Scarcely anything stands still, even what is most immediate. So we'll just pause for a second there because there is another part to this. But the thing that really stood out to me there is just how everything is always changing,
Yeah.
which is true. And, we talk about the temporary nature of thoughts or the temporary discomfort of withdrawal. And that's
Right.
why I highlighted this in particular. Before I move on to the second part, was there anything you want to sort of talk about
No, no,
on
go
reflection
ahead.
about?
Yeah, let's hear the rest of it. Yeah.
Sure. So then it says, reflect too on the yawning gulf of past and future time, in which all things vanish. So in all this, it must be folly for anyone to be puffed with ambition, racked in struggle, or indignant at his lot, as if this was anything lasting or likely to trouble him for long.
Wow. Sounds like willingly accepting temporary discomfort with about 100 more words, right? I mean, is that what
Exactly.
you gleaned from it?
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much, right? It's just like,
Yeah.
the discomfort's going to come and then it's going to go. But if
Yeah.
you have all these thoughts around, the future, then it's going
Mhm.
to get you off course and it's going to make you
Mhm.
feel helpless.
Right.
So I was on a call literally just before this podcast with a client, and he had quite a lot of junky thoughts, which were all about sort of how am I going to handle this urge. But what I was saying to him is like, well, in the moment, that's where you have your power. That's where you have your choice. And so if you're thinking about dealing with urges in the future, you're wanting to engage in your compulsive behavior right now. And
Yeah.
that's the key thing. And, the discomfort is going to pass.
And based on normally they'll be thinking about the desires in the future. How am I going to handle that? And then basing it on past experiences. Oh my God, in the past, this is what happened. I had this desire. I did this. I caved on myself. I engaged in my compulsive behavior based on the past. I mean, basing the future on what happened in the past. And there, the present moment, which is where the power is obliterated, right? There's nothing happening in the present. And then, of course, when you're thinking into the future anyway, that's one of the categories of junky thinking is future thinking, right? And that causes so much anxiety because ultimately you don't have any control over what you're going to do in the future. You can have intent, right? I intend to, think it through, make a choice or whatever. But until you get there and are in that present moment, it's just going to cause angst. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had that thought recently. I think it may have been influenced by this book, and there may even be a quote in this book about that. But just that thought of how you literally have no power over the past or the future, and therefore having these thoughts about the past or the future, which come from the addicted part of the mind,
Mhm.
it's so obvious when you kind of have this education that they're designed specifically to get you into feelings of helplessness, so that you go, well, forget this. I'm just gonna go ahead and choose to engage. I'm gonna relapse, and you feel
So
so powerless.
yeah, it's so obviously coming from the addictive part of the mind, that future and historic thinking, because if you have pathways that are wired in a certain way, thinking the analogy I like is if you're going to go, downtown, you're going to be in traffic. Are you going to worry in advance about stepping off the curb in front of the bus? No, you know you're going to look both ways, right? And you're not. You would never worry about that ahead of time. Think, oh my God, am I going to go downtown and step in front of a bus and be killed? No, you would never think that. So it's like once you rewire those pathways, then you won't think that way either when it comes to addiction. It'll be kind of, it becomes second nature, kind of a no brainer. Like if there's any sort of thought or desire, it's like, oh yeah, I know my clear choices, right?
Mm. I think the other thing there is like there's not any fear at all of choosing to engage. Like
Right.
in the past, before having the script, for example, in this education, I used to fear that I would relapse in certain situations. Like, as I've said a million times before, going on holiday and then, oh, what do I do when I get back to my studio flat and I'm all alone and there's no one there? And I used to think like, oh, what am I going to do in that situation? Or the classic case of people removing triggers, trying to stay busy, trying to distract themselves. Well, all of that is being caused by incorrect, inadequate addiction recovery sort of treatments, which sort of teach people that they're helpless and that uh, uh, they don't have the ability to deal with their urges.
Yeah.
But when you understand that the problem is in the mind, and the main problem to work on is dealing with compulsive desires, and then you really, really plan out exactly how you're going to deal with those urges, then you can have that self trust back of actually in any moment in the future, I know how to deal with urges because in the present moment, this is what I'm going to do. And then you just obliterate all those thoughts about the past or the future because if
Right.
you have those thoughts, you realize, oh yeah, I'm wanting to engage in my compulsive behavior right now, and well, in our case, you'd use the script to think it through
Yeah.
in that moment.
Well, if you think of those labels too, the labels perpetuate future and historic thinking because in the past, this is just who I am, right? Your history, this is who I am. Now we've labeled you, right? And now it's, of course, this is how I'm going to behave in the future. Not rather than, it's kind of like, with the 12 step, this is who I am. I'm an addict and I'm Mary and I'm an addict, right? Rather than this is what is happening to me right now. I'm having a desire to engage in my addictive behavior right now, which can change rather than this is who I am. I'm just going to have to deal with these desires for the rest of my life. Not true.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, another quote then. So, if someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake in any thought or action, I shall gladly change. I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone. The harm is to persist in one's own self-deception and ignorance.
Yeah,
Do you want to take a guess at why?
that's really right on. Yeah.
Yeah, want to guess at why I highlighted this one in particular, given that journey and my previous podcast before you?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I don't know about gladly. There's going to be resistance. I'll gladly. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Well, with some resistance, but I don't know what would it be. Hopefully, I will hopefully make these changes, right? Rather than you're just going to jump in and yeah, because we read one of the books that we did that was saying how there's nothing positive and all that. Or I mean, I don't remember what it was, but it was very much underestimating. Like there's going to be some resistance. There's going to be some challenge, some work. It's not just like we're going to have positive affirmations and gladly go through withdrawal. It's will give you a powerful tool where you can feel much better about going through withdrawal, much more empowered than maybe ever before when you're trying to run from it. But I don't know if I'd use gladly, Marcus. Was that Marcus? Yeah.
Well, I
These
think
are
this
all
is.
Marcus, right?
I mean, it says, yeah. So Marcus Aurelius, he says, if someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake in any thought or action, I shall gladly change. So,
Okay.
yeah, you're right. It's going to require discomfort to change those neural pathways. But
Yeah.
what came to my mind was more, okay, in the past, I was spouting nonsense on how do you overcome an addiction.
Yeah.
Um, and I just continue to seek the truth. Like, I continue to go on that mission of, well, there must be someone out there in the world who knows how to like overcome addiction in the right
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And so I used to make those YouTube videos talking about changing your environment or doing meditation and doing all these irrelevant things have nothing to do with how do you actually deal with compulsive desire. Like,
Yeah.
what do you do in that moment you have an urge? And I'd like to think I did change. Well, I have. Like, I'm literally so happy. Like, I am gladly able to like talk about how I feel like I've found kind of the truth on how do you deal with addiction and how
Mm.
I was wrong and show my mistake. You know, I've done so many podcasts and YouTube videos where I literally take old podcasts of mine, old YouTube videos of mine, and I'll analyze myself saying, I was wrong about this. I was wrong about this. Because I mean, the truth, like, I just, yeah, I love this. You know, I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone. The harm is to persist in one's own self deception and ignorance. Like, when you live your life in alignment with the truth, like, nothing can hurt you. Like, no comment that anyone says can hurt you because you just know, like, well, I feel like I'm making the right choice right now. And you're not going
Yeah.
to get everything right all the time, sure. Maybe you're going to do things wrong at times, obviously, but like, yeah, I just don't think anything can cause you much harm when you live in your life and you feel like you're speaking the truth. Whereas, yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people they don't want to change because they're scared that, like, oh, I'm gonna be found out that I've said something wrong. Like a lot of professionals, they want to kind of close their eyes to alternative approaches to addiction recovery because maybe they've been working in rehab centers for decades. So yeah, I thought this was a really good quote.
I think back to finally quit porn, right? And it's a fine line between you were open to change and glad. So I remember when I was like calling you out, like, hey, wait, finally quit porn? Hold the bus. That didn't happen. And then, I mean, I think I wouldn't call you glad or happy, but you were open. You were like, okay, I think you're right. And then of course, what's come out of all that is just an amazing thing with the Beyond Compulsion Academy. But initially it was like, but you were seeking change. You were seeking the truth. You were, and I think so many of our guys are. They're just like so grateful, like, oh my God, I finally found something that isn't the same recycled bullshit. So yeah, it's true. Yep.
Yeah, you are right though.
They're
Like,
glad. I take it back. They're glad.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think at first, like, yeah, there is resistance at first, but I think sometimes it just takes understanding. Like, once you
Yeah.
understand certain things, then you're gonna be more like, okay, yeah, this is right. Even
Yeah.
with, like, obviously I've been reading the Freedom Model this week, and the first like 100 pages in that kind of provides like an overwhelming amount of scientific evidence as to why rehab and 12 steps is ineffective if you actually look at the data overall. Now, obviously, it's going to work for some people for sure, but if you compare the data of people who have gone to like rehab or 12 steps with the average person who was addicted um, and didn't go to these groups, didn't go to these sort of recovery treatment programs that cost thousands, like the results are like basically the same. Like, and actually sometimes it's even worse if you go to the 12 steps or the rehab groups. And
Yeah.
I don't want to criticize them entirely because I'm sure
Yeah.
they help some people. But
Well, if we're talking about, we had a conversation about the evidence-based practices, right? You know, so I was working with one of the guys yesterday, who went to AA, 12-step AA, and he said everybody was, outside on a break smoking, right? So we've talked about this where, if you're substituting another behavior, right? So now you've stopped drinking, or let's talk porn. You've stopped doing porn, right? Stop using porn. But so now evidence-based practice would say, okay, that's a success because you've stopped using porn, right? But now you've started eating compulsively. You've started gaming compulsively. You started gambling compulsively. You started in some compulsive relationship. So evidence-based practice says, yes, you stop. So there's a success when truthfully, you're just in other addictions or compulsions. So it's, yeah, I don't know what that has to do with the quote, but
well, my point was going to
something,
be
I
that
guess. Yeah.
basically with like the freedom model, learning like the data and the science behind it,
Yeah.
in terms of the rehab, it's kind of helped me understand better what you said all along, which is that a lot of the addiction recovery programs are not only like neutral, but they're making it worse for people. And so,
I was so pleased to hear that coming from somebody who like has it's a best-selling book, I'm assuming. Like, okay,
no, it's
well,
not. It's not
say
that popular. Yeah,
what? It was not
isn't
that popular?
it's not that popular. No, it's not
Well,
like James
well,
Clear.
I'm not surprised because guess what? I'm not that popular either, and I usually end up when I talk about addiction treatment making it worse, I just piss people off, you know. So more power to what's the name of the author?
There's three different authors. There's
Oh,
Mark, Michelle, and Stephen. I can't remember their full
okay.
names.
Three
Yeah,
people wrote the book. Okay, well, hey, we're BFFs now. So yeah,
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 yeah.
cool. I'm glad someone else is saying it. But like you said, we haven't gotten to the how to how to solve the problem yet. So we'll see what they have to say. It'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I've not finished it yet, but I spent about 4 hours analysing it so far today. Many
Mhm.
more hours over the last few days as well. But yeah, my point on that was just going to be like, I didn't really understand the truth in that how these programs could possibly make it worse for people in the past
Right.
because you were saying it, but I think it's taken me a lot of time and then reading more of the research and the science to go, well, yeah, like that actually makes sense. I think when you understand something well enough, or maybe you've experienced something yourself, that's how you're going to be even more like glad to experience the truth and sort of share it and admit your mistakes. That's kind of where I
Right.
was going with that quote. It's
Yep.
just, and that's the thing with this method as well, and why I'm so confident in talking about why I was wrong in the past and how, I feel bad for putting out the nonsense, but it's just the regurgitated stuff that I'd heard elsewhere, really, and I was sharing what was working for me at the time. Kind of, had different goals as well. Like when I talked about doing meditation and how I thought that was really beneficial, I'd like been meditating for like an hour every day, and my goal back then was just simply how do you go on a long no-fap streak? Because I'd gone on a long no-fap streak and I'd been meditating for an hour every day, I kind of saw this correlation, and I was like, oh, maybe it's the meditation which has helped me go on this long no-fap streak.
Yeah.
But the truth is, it's like an unsustainable practice, and my thoughts and beliefs hadn't actually changed, and therefore I hadn't really learned how to deal with compulsive desires. I was just managing an addiction temporarily until I
Right.
inevitably relapsed, was back in the addiction, and then many months later met you and was kind of convinced of, okay, well, we've got to change our thoughts and beliefs, and the main thing that matters is how do you deal with urges. And then like a year and a half after sort of learning your method, that's when I'm like, oh yeah, like this is, in my opinion, the truth. Like this is what works. And then, just talking with clients, it cements that thought, that oh yeah, it is dealing with urges, which is the main problem. And a lot of the information I've consumed has actually been detrimental.
Yeah. I just I feel like I beat this to death, but waking up to messages from the guys that their lives have just changed and the gratitude is just like just makes me just want to carry on. It's we had got the one from Australia and we have these crazy time differences, right? And I'm like, hey, I wake up and then it's like I can't wait for Tom to wake up and read this message because this person woke up hours before me, and it's just like all across the world like that, and just I mean, the gratitude is really heartwarming, isn't it?
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
nice. I think you get a bit used to it over time, I feel. But I also want to put it out there that, like, I think this is important to say, and I actually think this would be useful to anyone to know, but we don't have 100% success rate, right?
Yeah, never
We kind
would.
of just put out education and provide a tool, and it's very in depth, and there's exercises. But to anyone who's interested in joining the Beyond Compulsion Academy, I don't want people joining thinking, oh, Tom and Mary always talk about these like testimonials or how happy the clients are. That means that everyone who joins must like easily overcome addiction. It's like, no, like there's some education and there's a script, but it's still work. Like it requires you to be proactive in using what we
Yeah.
provide, and it's 100% up to each individual client whether they wish to change. And if someone doesn't want to make that change, then like you could give them the best education in the world, but they're not going to make that change. And that's true for any listener, whether they're in the program or out of the program. It's like it is still it's going to come down to you whether you actually make the change or
Yeah.
not.
And with the neuroscience, the neuroplasticity, we give them a tool that they will be able to make those changes that will result in freedom from the addictive behavior, but that's where it becomes up to them to actually apply it. But we have so many, techniques to use to overcome the resistance to using it, right? So that's really helpful as well, because it's once if they use this tool, it's not really rocket science that those changes are going to happen in the brain. So, but a lot of it comes in understanding the addictive part of the mind and where it's going to try to get you to resist using it, right? So we cover all that and we work with them. So yeah, but there's never going to be 100% success,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
unrealistic. But I mean, with addiction in general, good grief, is there really any success going on out there? It just, I don't know about in the UK, but it's epidemic over here, just
yeah.
epidemic.
And it depends what you call addiction as well. And
Yeah,
I think there's an interesting point in the freedom model from what I've read so far. And obviously, this podcast is really meant to be about Marcus Aurelius's quotes. So sorry,
yeah,
Marcus, mate. But just gonna put it out there that like something that they say in the freedom model about addiction is like they and look, we'll do a whole podcast on this at some point, I'm sure, if we get permission, because I think I might need to ask them if we're even allowed to do that. But
yeah,
um, they kind of say that addiction is kind of like a myth, like it's a social construct, is what they say, which is interesting. And I think it depends. Like what we focus on is there a behavior in your life that you want to stop? And I think that is the most important thing because we could go around in circles with
yeah.
unanswerable questions on
Yeah, I want to
addiction.
say something about that.
Sure.
Addiction, whether addiction's real, you know, there's nothing. I mean, I've said a million times, it's like, it doesn't matter what you call it. People are like, well, what's the difference between compulsion and addiction? It's like, it doesn't really matter what you name it. If you're doing something that is harming your life, clearly harming your life, and you can't stop doing it, we'd love to help you, because that can change, but spending a lot of time on defining the word or whatever is not really super helpful when it's just basically, oh, I'm doing this thing, it's ruining my life, but I'm doing it anyway. That's it. That's the definition right there. Any behavior that you can plug into that, you're going to define, oh, this is considered an addiction, this is not, whatever. It doesn't really matter. If it's something that, we've had people that, are picking at their cuticles, biting their nails or whatever, if it's harming you and you can't stop doing it, well, call it whatever you want. Call it a habit, call it an addiction, call it whatever. But to me, again, it always comes back to how I'm going to stop doing this, right?
And I think as well that kind of lends itself to your point earlier about substitution, which is that
Mm-hmm.
these rates I mean the rates and like some of the science can be so like misconstrued because it doesn't take into account all these other behaviors that you may want to stop but you are unable to stop. And so it's like, okay, great, you've managed to stop porn, but now you're spending 4 hours scrolling on social media every day.
Yeah,
Like that was me in the past. I had
yeah.
so many substitute compulsive behaviors which I wasn't even aware of.
And then you
Food
went
as
back to
well.
porn.
Yeah, and then I went back to porn, exactly. So it's like in the past, for example, I would have meditated for like an hour every day, got on this long streak, but then I'm spending these hours on YouTube, social media, and overeating food. And it's like, oh, it's okay though, because I'm on a long streak.
Yeah,
But it's like, well, the real main problem I had in my life was still there, which was that I was engaging in behaviors which I wanted to stop. And I think
yeah,
self-improvement has come along as this like sort of this idea that okay, will make you happy if you do loads of self-improvement. Like if you journal, if you meditate, if you go to the gym, like this is going to make you happy. But for a lot of guys, I think like kind of around my age in particular, they're kind of watching these YouTube videos about these self-improvement people, and they might try some of these sort of techniques and routines out, but then they still are engaging in behaviors which are compulsive and they don't know how to stop. And so it doesn't really count for much and they end up feeling terrible and having this kind of up and down
yeah,
in unstable, ungrounded kind of life. And that's what's really important to understand about our work is literally about, okay, how do you stop all of that? It's not just about stopping porn,
Well,
which sounds scary at first, but it's the way
yeah.
to go.
And this whole idea, I mean, self improvement, self improvement, self improvement. I mean, it is literally everywhere to the extreme, right? Well, if you need to improve yourself, that that feeds into addictive thinking on self deprecation. There's something wrong with you. No, there's nothing wrong with you. You just have these addictive neural pathways that can be changed, right? But if you need to self improve, that's like every aspect. Oh, you got to do all these different things in your life. Like something is inherently wrong with you, and that's really not the case, you know? So many of the people that we work with really have really kind of rich, full lives. They got a lot going on, and the one thing that's dragging them down is the addiction. So yeah, and yeah, the whole substitution thing. We've talked about that ad nauseum. But the idea or the illusion misconception is that you're going to just substitute a healthy behavior, la la la, go and not think about it and do this healthy stuff. But that's not the case. When someone is in withdrawal from an addictive behavior, they're going to substitute something that is going to at least alleviate that discomfort for a minute, which is going to be another compulsive or addictive behavior. Then we get another compulsion, another addiction, and almost inevitably return to the original addiction. So then you have multiple addictions. Then we're talking, Wall-E, we're going to be in the lounge chair with the giant big gulp and the screen and we've already arrived at Wall-E kind of a long time ago. That's not any kind of futuristic film anymore, you know? Yeah.
Definitely in some parts of the world for sure. I think around where I live, it's not like at that level, but yeah,
Well,
as
you're
you
in the
say,
kind of hipster part of your area too. I mean, I could go up into Northwest Portland, into North Portland, Northwest, into the hipster area. There's going to be a lot of the beautiful people looking for, whatever. But the other thing you don't see with that is you don't see like the bulimia and the anorexia and the people that are completely exercise, compulsive and all that, and that's not a good way to live. If you feel like, oh my God, if I don't exercise, I'm just going to be, that's not peace of mind, where you exercise out of choice because it makes you feel good. When you're exercising to not think about your food compulsion or your porn addiction or whatever, it's not a peaceful place to be where you are in control of your choices all the time, and feel good about that.
I
So
think a big subtle mental shift that everyone could benefit from making is recognizing when they're saying, I have to do whatever it is, and shifting it into, I don't have to do whatever it is. It's on a call, as I say, an hour ago with a client, and he had this like kind of thought plan of like something along the lines of, oh, I have to use my script. And I said to him, well, actually, you don't have to use your script. Obviously, we shifted it first into like, you get to use it. But then I was also like, another thing is, you don't actually have to use your script. Like, you don't actually have to do our program. Like, you could literally leave the program right now. That's what I said to him. I said to him, look, you could leave the program right now. You could leave this call with me one on one right now.
yeah.
It's up to you. Like, it's your choice. And that's the thing about compulsion is it's that feeling of like, I have to do X, Y, Z. I've got to work out. I've got to eat really healthy. I have to quit porn. But it's like, no, you actually don't have to stop watching porn. You have a choice, right? And that's where your freedom comes from in changing the way you think about things.
Substitution is really underestimated how detrimental that is to the process of getting free of an addiction. It really is very underestimated. So I'm glad that we address it as thoroughly as we do because like the big picture goal, right, is beyond compulsion, right? So you don't have to feel pulled all the time to change the way you feel, right? The way you feel is kind of like an okay thing. And if you want to go use meditation or whatever, you can go to therapy, whatever, to improve the way you feel, then okay, great. But using those things as a way to stop an addiction is going to backfire.
hmm I think another thing is if you want to change the way you feel, the best way to do it is to change what's going on in your mind, like change how you're thinking about things. And that's what this
Yeah.
book is really, really good at expressing and getting across. And I would recommend this book. You know, obviously on the podcast lately, we've analyzed and dissected a few books that are a lot more, you know, modern, sort of contemporary, sort of self-improvement books or on addiction. But this book, I mean, this is just Marcus Aurelius journaling to himself. It wasn't actually meant to be for anyone. It wasn't trying to make money. He wasn't trying to get fame. It was just him literally journaling on kind of like values and philosophy. And I think philosophy and like core concepts is so important to understand the value of that and how that is like the most important thing. And if you want to overcome a porn addiction, you know, any sort of quick hack or tip or gimmick isn't really going to give you the freedom you want. The freedom's going to come in changing the way you think about things and your education.
Hmm.
So with that in mind, let's get to another quote. So
Yeah, that's
I am made of body and soul. Now to the poor body, all things are indifferent, as it cannot even make any distinction. To the mind, all that is not in its own activity, to the mind, all that is not in its own activity is indifferent, and its own activities are all in its control. But within these, the mind is only concerned with the present. Its activities in the future and in the past are also indifferent at any present moment. Yeah, the first two
but
sentences were a bit.
insignificant if you're trying to make a change in your thinking.
What was that, Mary? Sorry, I missed that.
I don't know about indifferent. People don't necessarily feel indifferent about what's happened in the past or what's going to happen in the future. But if you're trying to make a change, of course, we're talking about addiction, right? I mean, we sort of are, I guess. But I would say that it's not significant. It's not something that needs a whole lot of consideration, other than maybe like remembering, like, okay, this is what it means to be stuck in an addiction, and this is what my life could potentially look like if I get free of this addiction. But it still is going to need to come back to the present moment to actually make changes to get free of what you don't want and get to what you do want. Right? It's still going to come back to the present moment.
Yeah, and I think the main thing really to just take away from that quote is that the present moment is the most important thing, and that's something that I think lacks from most of these books on addiction recovery because, again, you know, they're about sort of like planning for the future with removing your triggers or, you know, putting in these blockers in place so you are unable to access porn. But in that present moment, when you have a compulsive desire, that right there is your opportunity to change your pathways. And that's where you actually have power and control over your choice.
Yeah, and that's, I think, where most of the books, when you get to, okay, what's your advice for a solution to actually overcome this, solve this problem? That's where it lacks in that to hell with it moment, that moment of compulsive desire. There's not a tool for that, not a specific tool, and that's what we provide. Because that moment is the critical moment, right? Where you can make changes in the brains, and that's where our script addresses that very specifically to get people to actually experience that change.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that this book does is it kind of expresses similar sort of philosophical points, but in a wide range of ways with different words. And I think that is quite useful though to reinforce it. You know, we often say like good education, you can't really hear it enough times. Like if you just kind of hearing the right thing on repeat and repetition is so essential. Like
Yeah.
for me with my script, I've probably used it like in the tens of thousands at this point to change my brain. And I actually take pride in that. I don't see it as this thing of like, oh, I have to use the script. It's like that script has been the thing to change my life more than anything. And I enjoy
Yeah.
getting grounded back in the present moment, which the script enables. But anyway, another point then that, you know, Marcus Aurelius, another quote, sorry, which again is quite repetitive really to what we've just been talking about, what he says. And I know you've heard this one before, but do not let the future trouble you. You will come to it, if that is what you must, possessed of the same reason that you apply now to the present. Is that it? That's the one you've got on that card.
This is long before I met you.
Yeah,
Use this quote with my addiction work. The exact
really.
same one. basically don't worry about the future because you're going to have your script to use in that when it gets there,
Yeah, that's
The
great.
same weapons of reason. That's the script, is the weapon of reason, and it's not going anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. I love that.
I've got a quote in my mind that we can use for the 14th one. It was a quote that I use
Okay, yeah,
from.
because that we just blew the 14th one there. So we
Yeah,
had a little
exactly. That's what I'm
duplicate.
thinking.
Yeah.
It's important. At the sauna at the gym, the 13th locker is the one that's faulty. I think there is something about that number 13. And then
Yeah.
there's where is it? There's somewhere that I went recently where they have, oh yeah, no, it's just a Ryanair flight. Yeah, on the airplane the other week, they don't have a aisle 13, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, we.
I know, it's crazy.
That's what do you call it? Suspicious, not suspicious, but yeah, I don't know what the word is, but yeah.
Anyway,
Would you want to not sit in aisle 13? Would you? I
I
don't know.
wouldn't like to sit.
I wouldn't think about it. If I'd get on a plane, I'd be like, okay, it's 13. I wouldn't think about it, but I guess that's superstitious. That's the word.
Yeah, I mean it's incredibly irrational, but I would hate to be on 13 on a plane.
Yeah.
But anyway, here's
If
another
there
quote
was
then.
more leg room, I'd take it.
I get so lucky with the leg room on flights recently, because they've got like this middle part where I think that's where you can like exit the plane, right? And yeah, there's been a few times anyway. Anyway, I could get off track. Remember that to change course or accept correction leaves you just as free as you were. The action is your own, driven by your own impulse and judgment, indeed your own intelligence.
Can't really wrap my brain around that one. It's a lot of it's. I mean, the philosophical nature of the quotes is it kind of like you got to think like, what did he actually just say?
Can I jump
What's
in
your
here?
interpretation?
Yeah, my interpretation. So I'll read it again as well. Remember that to change course or accept correction leaves you just as free as you were. The action is your own, driven by your own impulse and judgment, indeed your own intelligence. Now, what came to my mind here is it's like, people who they fear that if they join some kind of program or they get some kind of education, that then they can no longer maybe engage in a compulsive behaviour.
Okay.
It's like, okay, well, if I join Beyond Compulsion Academy, then I won't be able to watch porn. But it's like, well, actually, if you learn something new, you still have your ability to think through choices in whichever way you choose. It's still going to be your choices. If, remember that to change course or accept correction leaves you just as free as you were. Whatever you learn, whether it's from us or whether it's from a different program, from a therapist, whoever you learn from, and I do recommend getting external support with addiction. I really do at this point, to be honest, from somebody. If you go down that route, you still have your independent choice to choose to engage in compulsive behaviors. Nothing external can take away that choice. So that's what I just loved about that is like
Yeah.
you could learn anything from anyone, and you're always going to have that choice still. You're just as free as you were. You still can go and relapse. Like you could still go and watch porn, right? Which I just love that personally.
Well, it's been kind of the bane of my existence doing this work for all these years. It's like, you want to let people know that there's a very, very high chance that you're going to get free of this if you do this work, right? Then their mind goes to, oh my God, if I do this work, I can't do my behavior anymore, right? But if you can get them into, the initial phase of the program, they can learn to counteract that. But that creates a lot of negative feelings, the feelings of deprivation. And oh my God, I won't get to do my thing anymore. So it's tricky, but yeah, we'll handle it.
Hmm.
So you can move forward with the education and leave those feelings behind because those are the hamster wheel feelings of deprivation that just keep you stuck. So, yeah, so the main point being you can engage with the program and change your mind anytime you want.
Yeah, exactly. So like,
Yeah.
if someone's got any fear of maybe, I mean, obviously we kind of disagree with the concepts in therapy, right? But let's just take therapy as an example. If someone is listening to this and they're like, okay, I've been in this addiction to porn for 20 years, as often people have been, and it's like, okay, what do I do? Just know that if you were to go get help from a therapist and you were to, seek some education, or you did a program online or whatever, just knowing that, okay, well, even though you're doing that, you still have that freedom for yourself. No one can take that choice away from you. It completely changes how you feel about things, and it kind of helps you maybe alleviate those feelings of fear of like, shit, I'm gonna have to stop watching porn, which isn't true, but that's the thought pattern that will come up for you
Hmm. Yep.
from the addictive part of the mind.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Quite
again, you can engage with the program and change your mind anytime.
exactly. All right. Here's another one then. Erase the impressions on your mind by constantly saying to yourself, it is in my power now to keep this soul of mine free from any vice or passion or any other disturbance at all, but seeing all things for what they are, I can treat them on their own merits. I can treat them on their merits. Remember this power which nature gives you.
Well, nature doesn't really give you that power. So, yeah, I don't feel like nature is going to supply that power. I mean, nature can feed a sense of peace and a sense of groundedness and a sense of um, maybe feed spirituality, connectedness, all of that stuff, right?
I don't think it
But,
means nature in a literal sense. I think it means just
okay,
like, remember this power that which nature gives you, as in, the nature of life, like the nature of having a human conscious, like having consciousness. I think that's what it's getting at here. Is like, remember
yeah,
that within your consciousness, which is created via a natural process of, reproduction or whatever, you have this ability to,
yeah.
be free from any vice or passion.
Never thought
Unlike,
I'd disagree with Marcus, but I mean, look at the collective consciousness right now. Collective consciousness, which affects everybody, like addiction's normal, do you deserve it, all this stuff, right? All the normalizing, so that it's going to take away from your innate consciousness of knowing that you can make choices for yourself or whatever he's saying right there. Who knows when Marcus said that, said before the internet of like, everything is normalizing this addictive stuff in your face, like constantly. Has effect on people's consciousness and the collective consciousness. I mean, it just has a way of spiraling, right?
but I would argue that you still have that inherently within you. So anyone still has that potential for change despite what's going on externally.
Right. But we're going to tap into it. How are we going to tap them into that? It's kind of like one of the books where we talked about getting in touch with the prefrontal cortex. We were saying you can't do that, right? Where we can help them get back into that place where they can make a rational choice, where they're not just, um, acting on emotions and whatever, because all the stuff out there is really affecting people's emotions, right? I mean, it's designed to affect people's emotions to get them to act in a certain way, right? So I think it's a lovely thought, but not quite as simple, especially given um, where society is at right now. So we have to consider that to a certain extent. Not completely and totally, because we want people to be able to make choices regardless of what society's throwing at them. But it is something to consider when you want to be tap into your innate, power
Yeah, I hear what
and
you're
make a
saying.
different choice. I don't
Like
think it's quite that simple.
externally, of course, yeah, I mean the vast
Yeah,
majority of people are currently, sharing things which I don't think are really in alignment with this quote. But I
yeah,
think what is interesting is if you think about how people change their thoughts and beliefs through their life, but you're kind of born without these maybe preconceived notions, or these patterns of thought. You're not born into life going, oh yeah, I can't watch porn. You develop that thought pattern by going online and trying to find a solution, and then you end up
yeah,
going on nofap forums and shit like this. So it's like that nature is kind of that was always in you. Like you've always got that there. But then it's about how do you remove all the bullshit, right? It's kind of what
Right.
you're saying. It's like how do
So
you
that is
actually
like, that's destroying that innate power and feeling of power to make choices for yourself, because helplessness is validated at literally every turn. So, yeah, yeah,
and that makes me think as well, it just kind of reinforces what we already know, which is that there's nothing wrong with anybody for struggling with addiction. Like there's nothing wrong with them inherently to their core. It's like their nature is likely quite good. Like I think humans want to act in alignment with their values because we see that day in day out with the guys we work with, like good guys doing good things in the world, and they want to make choices they're proud of. Of course, I think everyone does. Everyone listening to this wants to make good rational choices, but it's
yeah.
the external socialization and the almost like the brainwashing really by the mistreatment of addiction recovery, which leads people to feel helpless and feel like, oh, I need to remove triggers. I need to have these blockers in place. Oh, I can't deal with my urges. Or I've got these overwhelming cravings which last forever, which are all just junky thoughts
Helplessness, yeah,
that get validated. So, yeah, yeah, it's interesting.
100%.
All
Yeah,
right,
yep.
cool. Yeah, it's interesting. Right, let's do another one then. So, do
Hmm.
not let the panorama of your life oppress you. Do not dwell on all the various troubles which may have occurred in the past or may occur in the future. Just ask yourself in each instance of the present, what is there in this work which I cannot endure or support? You will be ashamed to make any such confession. Then remind yourself that it's neither the future nor the past which weighs on you, but always the present. And the present burden reduces if only you can isolate it and accuse your mind of weakness if it cannot hold against something thus stripped bare.
I'm sorry, but I probably would have gone and engaged in my compulsive behavior at that point, somewhere in the middle of that. Oh,
A bit too wordy for you, is that?
that's a really, that's a lot of words, you know. But I mean, it's philosophy, right? Philosophers are known to be very poetic and say, I mean, but it sounds a little bit similar to one we already did, you know, maybe at the beginning of the podcast. It's kind of like stay in the moment, make a choice, you're going to make changes, you know. And the thing is dwelling on the panorama of your life. I mean, that's not useful if you're trying to get free of an addiction, but you know, memories are nice, you know, to think about good things in your life and good potential things in your future. But I mean, we're in, you know, treating addiction. That's what we do. So I always kind of come back to that, you know, and he's kind of saying the same thing, which is stay in the moment, right? And
Yeah,
again, will give you a tool to be able to do that, because all this talk of, oh, just be in the moment, just be, just be, just be. People with all these thoughts, addictive thoughts in their head, and living in constant conflict of, oh, I want to do it, I want to stop, you know, telling them, oh, just be in the moment, meditate yourself. That's easier said than done when you've got addictive thinking coming at you 100 miles an hour, you know?
yeah, that's why I think that part of the quote where he's talking about kind of like isolating what's going on in the mind in the present moment
Yeah,
is quite good because it's like, okay, how do you become aware of your junky thoughts and unanswerable
yeah,
questions and see how the addictive part of the mind is trying to spin you into helplessness or deprivation, right?
yeah,
Because you've got these different parts of the mind going on. So if you can isolate that in the present moment, that's like a skill which requires training, I believe. Whereas if you're looking and dwelling on the panorama of your life, that's kind of like, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to look for causes for our addiction by evaluating what happened when we were seven on the playground at school. It's like, yeah, that's probably not going to help you when you have a compulsive desire.
yeah.
So yeah, I think
And
that,
now you literally can look at the panorama of your life because you have so many different settings on your camera, right? Woo-hoo. You can, rather than, I see so much of that, rather than like enjoying just the moment of what you're doing and the beauty of nature or whatever. Now we're going to take a panorama. I mean, photos are nice and everything, but sometimes it's a little over the top. It's like, can't we just be in the moment and enjoy the nature, enjoy being in nature, enjoy whatever we're seeing without having to put, you know, take all these photos and put all these filters on and turn them into reels and turn them into TikToks and, you know,
yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. A couple of weeks
yeah,
ago,
yeah,
my
yeah.
mates went to see Drake at the Co-op Live Arena, which is like literally a 15-minute walk from my apartment. I think I might have mentioned that to you the other day about Billie Eilish as well, how she was there
Right,
like a few
about
days
Billie
before.
Eilish. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Drake was on like a few days later, and a couple of my mates, Nathan and Ollie, they went to see him, and I was actually in the taxi with them, like going to the show, because I was still tempted to buy a ticket if I could like find a lower price one. Couldn't find a lower price one. It was too expensive for me, to be honest with you. So I didn't go. But I also did think like for that price, I just don't think it's worth it. Because it was about 180 quid or so. It was a lot of money. And I was like, realistically, so many people at that show will just be like videoing the performance like half the time. It's like
Yeah.
it makes it so much less valuable to me
Yeah.
because one, it's distracting. I don't want all these lights around me all the time. Like it's okay for maybe like one song, right? But then it's also like, well, you could just go watch him or listen to his music now online. So yeah, it just kind of takes away the value from the present moment, I think, if you are filming everything all the time, for sure.
Yeah, it reminds me of that. It's like a Progressive Insurance or State Farm, one of those insurance commercials where the guy's like viewing this beautiful new serene spot he's found with this lake, and the woman says something. He's like, "No, be quiet," and he says, "Uh oh, here they are." And here comes this woman with the thing where you have your camera on, the stick, and
Mm.
it's like she's doing this reel, and like it's just this like, and he's like, "Oh boy, here we are." Out in the Serenity ruined. Now it's been turned into a TikTok
Yeah, yeah. I
or
think
a reel or whatever. Yeah.
like
It's
some
a
of the
funny ad. It's a really funny ad. Yeah. Yeah.
so I think some of the best YouTube videos ever are the ones where like you occasionally get the algorithm show you on where it's from like 14 years ago or something, and they're like just the most organic like videos ever where someone's just like accidentally like press record on something, or some guy's just on his like terrible like camera phone and he's just like sat next to a bear that like comes up to
Yeah.
him in a forest, and you're like, holy shit, what's going on here? But that stuff's like awesome. Whereas like nowadays everything just seems so dramatic and exaggerated and
Yeah.
staged and just inauthentic, which it
Yeah.
loses its like pull, you just don't really, yeah, it just hasn't got the same energy or feeling to it, I don't think.
Well, it's like I told you about the PVA, the professional volleyball right tour, right? Where they've made all these reels of the people making the kill, right? And they've slowed it way down as they approach, and then once they hit the ball, they speed it up, and it's like it's so overly dramatized that when you watch the actual match happening, it's kind of like, oh, this is kind of boring or something.
Mm, mm.
'Cause it's like, yeah, over dramatized and special effects and all of that is like, and short form content, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The
Mhm.
pervasive normalization of supernormal stimuli. What can we say?
Yeah.
That's a lot of words. I think Marcus would be proud. Right. Today I escaped from all bothering circumstances, or rather, I threw them out. They were nothing external but inside me, just my own judgments.
Through what was the first word?
All right, I'll read this again. So,
Yeah.
today I escaped from all bothering circumstances.
Bothering. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're getting bothered by circumstances, but then it's like, actually, or rather, I threw them out. They were nothing external, but inside me, just my own judgments. So that I
Yeah.
love because he's saying, okay, no matter what comes your way externally, the only thing that can harm you is your own judgments, your own thoughts, it's your beliefs. That's what harms you. And I've been into Stoic philosophy for like 5 years, and honestly, it just changes everything when you begin to think like this all the time. Because when it comes to addiction recovery, so many people say, "Oh, I relapsed because of X, Y, Z." "Oh, my
Yeah.
wife didn't have sex with me." Whoa, okay, that your own thought pattern has led to you choosing to engage because you might think, "Oh, my wife should have sex with me. It's so unfair that she doesn't have sex with me. I need to release," and therefore you go and choose to like relapse and watch porn or whatever, right? So nothing external can harm you. It's literally only your own thoughts and judgments which can. So yeah, I really love this quote personally.
Yeah. And looking for a reason too. Oh, I'm engaging because my wife didn't have sex with me, rather than you have a choice. You can engage. But if you engage because your wife didn't have sex with you, or if you engage because you stubbed your toe, whatever reason you're using, the consequences are going to be the same of relapsing into an addictive behavior, so it doesn't really matter. And just a little more on the quote, it's like to throw it out. It reminds me of kind of letting go. You got to remember that addiction has a grip. You think of throwing something out that has a grip that's attached to you. It's going to keep coming back. I'm going to get this off my hand. It's like it's not that simple.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think sometimes Stoic philosophy can be almost too passive. It can sometimes have that attitude of like, because nothing external can harm you at all you can really do is like master your own mind and then things are going to be fine. But when you live in a world of like chaos and distortion and inequality and people treating others in very, very poor ways and irrationality everywhere and compulsive like compulsion everywhere, it's kind of like the most rational thing you can do is like once you have this education, um, is like stand up to it and talk about it and share it, in my opinion. All right, here's another quote then. So good or ill for the rational social being lies not in feeling, but in action, just as also his own virtue or vice shows not in what he feels, but in what he does.
Well, that's very true, because I mean, if you think about it, it's, giving the guys the tool, or anyone the tool, to not have to act on compulsive behavior. When they change that action, they're able to change the action, then that is going to change the desire. That's going to diminish the desire until it's gone. So obviously, it's going to really change the way that you feel, right? You're going
For
to get
sure.
out of that trap, that constant conflict, right? You're going to get out of that, but you're not going to get out of that by going and acting in a different way, going to the gym, going to meditate, learn how to play the guitar, whatever you're going to do to try to not think about it. That's not going to change the way you feel. That's going to make you feel even more like, oh God, how can I get away from these thoughts and these feelings? When you change that action, when you have the ability to change the action, that's going to ultimately change the way that you feel by eliminating the addictive desire almost completely. I mean, maybe it'll pop up every now and then, but mostly it'll be a non-issue. Yeah.
And I also think you've said many times, like you're going to get to a point where you just like don't really have the desires or it's a non-issue. I think as well for me, because there's been times I still have compulsive desires. And just from my perspective, I think, well, this quote, how I interpret it is like, okay, well, you could have desires or you could have this discomfort go on in your mind. And maybe it's not discomfort for porn anymore. It might be to, I don't know, check your messages or check your emails. But it's like, you have that discomfort, but it doesn't really matter that you've got this feeling that's a bit uncomfortable because you're a human being. You're going to have discomfort because you're a human being, and that's universal. Every single person on this planet has discomfort at times. So what matters is how do you respond to it? And that for me is the most important thing, because I don't know whether I will or I won't, but if I have desires for pretty much anything in life for the rest of my life, it doesn't really matter to me much, because I just know that in that moment that I have a compulsive desire, I'm going to respond in a rational way. And that for me is freedom. It's like, okay, well, I have that self-trust, and that is possible for literally anyone. Anyone can cultivate that skill through the right education and training. And that is the most important thing, in my opinion. It's not about how you feel, it's about how do you respond to it. And I think as time goes on, you train yourself in thinking in this way and understanding it, and then it applies to so many things. So you can end up spending like 20 minutes in an ice bath or running a marathon or working for a crazy amount of hours a day if that's what you choose to do. You don't have to do all these crazy extreme things, because that can end up being compulsive, as I'm sure you'd point out. But it just is kind of that proof of like you actually can do things that in that moment feel really, really tough, feel very uncomfortable. And we always say to someone like, someone will say, because they may have the addicted part of the mind, say, the junkie thought of like, oh, I can't do it. It feels impossible. And it's like, well, actually, the truth is, of course, it feels impossible right now because you're going through withdrawal and changing your neural
Yep.
pathways is
How it's supposed
difficult.
to feel. Yeah.
Yeah, it's natural. It's expected. And that's the
Hmm.
thing. If you want to, make change, real change, it's so important to recognize that you are going to feel discomfort at times, and that's natural and it's expected. But it's how you respond that actually changes things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agree.
All right.
100%.
Here's another quote then. The external things whose pursuit or avoidance troubles you do not force themselves on you, but in a way, you yourself go out to them. However that may be, keep your judgment of them calm, and they too will stay still. Then you will not be seen either to pursue or to avoid.
You're, it's going to come at you. You're going to want to pursue unless you have a clear understanding of how the addictive part of the mind uses things like that to get you to react.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean that. Well, read that.
Shall I read it again?
The quotes are very, you know, they're not cut and dry. So I'm just trying to grasp what I can from each one.
I
So
think it may be easier for me as well because I'm like reading them. Like personally, I find it so
yeah,
much
you can look
easier.
at it, and I'm
Yeah.
just going, okay, that was a whole lot of words I'm trying to process here. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because for me personally, I find it so much easier to understand things when I'm reading them than when I'm hearing them. So
Same. I
yeah,
agree 100%. That's why I write things down all the time.
yeah.
Well, I'm not writing down a lot today because the quotes are way too long to write down. But whenever I work with any of the guys, I'm writing down their junky thinking. I'm writing down things they're saying all the time so I can help them, respond back.
Yeah.
But I can retain it when I can look at it and see it. So, well, what's your take on that quote?
Yeah, me too. Well, I'll read it again first. So,
Sure.
and then I'll provide my take, and then you can provide yours. So, the external things whose pursuit or avoidance troubles you do not force themselves on you, but in a way, you yourself go out to them. So, because it's talking about how these external things. So, if we think about social media, for example, let's say they're the social things that Marcus would be talking about if you lived in present day society.
Mhm.
So let's say, social media, it's not going out its way to force itself on you. That
Well, that's debatable. It's going out of its way to force itself on everybody. Ah. Anyway, I know what you're saying. Yeah, it can't force you to use it, right? You go to it. You go to them is what he says, right? You go to it. Yeah, it's that's true. Can't force itself on you. But the thing is if you don't have a tool to deal with that desire to go to them, even though it's going to be this thing that's like consuming all this time, you're going to be scrolling and all this whatever, not useful to your life or whatever you want to stop doing it, you still go to it because you have the desire and you don't have a way to go, oh, this is not serving me, so I'm going to think it through and make a choice that's going to serve me. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I think this is useful though to a lot of people who may have the junky thought of, I got triggered, or something like, oh, or maybe even making complaints about seeing sexual content on social
Yeah.
media, which is
No
somewhere
one's
I've
forcing
been.
it on you.
Yeah, no one's forcing it on you. It's still your choice whether you choose to click on it or not. So the decision is yours,
But
basically.
Tom, seriously though, we've had guys, you've had the experience yourself where there it is.
Yeah, that is true.
If you're on social media for some reason, even if it's not seeking out any kind of sexual content
Mm.
or whatever, you're just you're on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I was on LinkedIn. Yeah. It's crazy.
I mean, so sometimes it is forced on you. The choice that you make once it's
Mm,
there, that's a different situation.
mm,
Um,
yeah,
but sometimes, I mean, it is forced on you. Like you said, you were walking down the street and these women are dressed like barely dressed, and but that's again, that's not in anybody's control. You just have to be in a position where it's like, oh, I see that. Okay. Now, where I'm going to let my mind go with that, that's another story. And once you really, really do this work in depth, it's not work you have to do. It just becomes natural to be like, oh, never see that. Okay, well, I know what I want for myself.
I think
I know I
there's
want to be, right?
there's more people competing for our attention now than ever. And yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. I mean, I was on LinkedIn like 2 days ago trying to do some work, and I literally see an OnlyFans person on LinkedIn, and then LinkedIn, they're suggesting like these OnlyFans, and it's just like absolutely mental. I couldn't believe it when I saw that because I had this misconception, I suppose, that LinkedIn was this place where you wouldn't ever really see anything like that. So I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, it's there.
I would think the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like if you can't go on LinkedIn and avoid porn. I mean, OnlyFans is pornography.
In my opinion, yeah, for sure.
It's hookers,
Digital hookers.
digital hookers. I mean, yeah, it's like, why is OnlyFans any different than what we used to call the whorehouse? The
Yeah,
same thing.
I agree.
They're selling their bodies.
Yeah, labelled as progressive feminism, but we could get into the whole politics around that on another day, I suppose.
Yeah, don't even get into that.
Yeah. All right, I'll do another quote here then. So, realize at long last that you have within you something stronger and more numinous than those agents of emotion which make you a mere puppet on their strings. What is in
Yeah.
my mind at this very moment? Fear, is it? Suspicion, desire, something else of that sort? Quite a few unanswerable questions there, but I like the part
Mhm.
that, it kind of talks about you're more than just these. You're more than the addicted part of the mind. Like you can put the rational mind in control. There is something in you that's like a higher level of consciousness within you that has the potential, the capacity to make rational choices every single moment of the day. Whereas, behavioral like theorists like Skinner, they kind of talk about, okay, well, conditional sort of operating, where this happens, so therefore you're like a puppet on a string. If you see this in your environment, then you're gonna like automatically relapse, which is bullshit and just based on like studies of rats and stuff, instead of actually acknowledging the consciousness and the amazing ability that humans have to make rational choices.
I think that most people that are stuck in addictive behaviors are puppets on the string until they can find a way to deal with it, to deal with the desire, because it's like, okay, we're going to, give you this trigger, that trigger, we're going to do this, and they don't know what to do. So they just act automatically into the behavior because they don't know what else to do.
Yeah, but they're stuck temporarily. As you know, obviously they're not. You don't have to stay like that. Like you can go and seek the right education or training or
Yep.
therapist or whoever you think's got the best information for you, and you can make that change. Like that's the important thing, right? Is well, help is here. Like you literally can
Up is
transform
here.
yourself. Yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
Let's do a final one. Let's do a 14th one. I think there's been 13. Apologies if there hasn't. So this is the quote which I remember from the Daily Stoic. All you need in life are these: certainty of judgment in the present moment, action for the common good in the present moment, and an attitude of gratitude in the present moment for anything that comes your way. Yeah, that was one of my favourite quotes ever, and that's stayed in my mind ever
Yeah.
since.
Well, I tell the guys all the time, do not take for granted what you're getting from this. It's the work that you're putting in every time you get in that moment and you make that choice for yourself and you make these changes in your brain. That's why you are getting the benefits of doing this work. Don't take it for granted, right?
Mm,
Yeah.
100%, and you raise a really good point there, which is that by choosing to stop engaging in compulsive behaviour, you're getting something rather than it just being about, oh, I want to get away from pain. I just want to get away from feeling terrible about myself. It's like, well, actually, choosing to stop this behavior is going to give you this. It's like,
You know,
yeah, so
reminds
important.
me, bajillion years ago, I made this graphic, which was like a scale, right? And the scale was what you're getting, right? Because if you don't consistently remind yourself, this is what I'm getting from making these choices, then the scale will be balanced over here to, oh, I'm giving something up, right? And then the addictive part of the mind can use that. Oh God, I'm giving up. It'd be so great, and start glamorizing all that stuff. But if you keep balancing it out with, oh wait, I get this, even if it's just acknowledging a few hours of freedom, mental freedom, whatever it is, it's just going to keep on, the weight on this side until pretty soon it's like it's kind of a no contest.
Yeah, absolutely. And also,
So
just like
important.
the language of giving up as well is just like such a junky thought. It's like, well, what are you giving up? I mean, you're choosing moment by moment what you want. The only thing that you're no longer going to have is the temporary relief from the discomfort of withdrawal, which is created by acting on the desire. And therefore, once you're
Right.
out of it, you're going to realize you're not giving up
Yeah.
anything.
You don't even want them. Once you're out, temporary relief isn't even a thing. When it's the only thing you're really getting anyway, because it goes so quickly. Once someone gets to this point that they want, that the temporary relief can be so fleeting, and then it goes almost immediately into all the horrible feelings of having done it again. Oh my God, here I am, regret, I'm back in it, all that. It's very fleeting. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. We'll wrap it up here then. Thank you so much, Mary. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, nice one.
Thank
And
you.
to anyone listening, if you would like to learn more about the Beyond Compulsion method, then you can go to the www.beyondcompulsionacademy.com. There's a free training video there. There's a compulsion test. You can get a score out of 100. And there's also more details and testimonials about our program and much more blogs as well that I've created myself. So hopefully they can be useful to someone.
Yeah.
Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next podcast. Bye bye.